Hello everybody, welcome back to day 2 of our bead along. So hopefully you finished making what you should have made yesterday, which is 4 of these little pieces and 3 of these little pieces, okay? And you are going to need some of your crystal bicone, your 4mm either rounds or crystal bicones today. So make sure you have those 4mm with you, and obviously your 15 O's and your 2 11 O's with you as well. Okay, so go ahead and put on a nice long piece of thread, like a wingspan, because it's easier than having to add more later. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to join these little pieces together to form a square like this, okay? So go ahead and go up through one of the corners, the left-hand corner, unless you're left-handed, then go through the right-hand corner. By the way, there are printouts that you can download for $5 on my store, and I'll put a link for that down below for the pattern. I've done it both for left-handed and for right-handed. So those of you who are left-handed, I've reversed all the photos so that you can do it left-handed instead of right-handed like I'm doing. Okay, all right, so go ahead, go through the left-hand corner of the lower corner. So this is this edge with the little picot, that is the outside edge, okay? And you can just go ahead and, leave a tail. If you want, you can put on a stop bead, but I don't really think that that is necessary, okay? You're going to pick up one of your B beads. Just checking that that is correct. Yes, okay. So one of your colored beads, okay? And you're going to, so if you have your 2 pieces together like this, okay? Let me zoom you in really quickly here. Okay. I'm coming out from the top because I went in my left-hand corner. My thread's coming out the top, so I'm going to go down through the right-hand corner of the second square, okay, like this. So there's my bead in the middle there, okay. Then you're going to pick up one more, and you're going to go back up through the, making sure you don't go through any of the 15 O's on the way, okay. And so you're going back up through the first corner, and then that is going to form, as you will see here, just a little right angle weave unit like that, okay? So now once you've got that, you're going to follow the thread path. So you're going to go through the top one of those, move these, okay. So through that top B, okay, then you're going to go down through the other left hand one, okay, and then we have to scooch all the way down to the next side. So just go ahead and run through all of those over to the next corner, okay? So now we're coming out the top of the left-hand corner again, so we're going to do exactly the same thing. You're going to pick up one of your blue beads, or whatever color, your B beads, okay? You're going to go down into the next right-hand corner. You're going to pick up another bead. You're going to go up into the first one that you just were coming from, okay? Like this. And then you're going to move forward through the top and into the next unit, and then you're going to scooch along the bottom through the beads, and then you're going to come out from the next corner. Okay, you're going to do exactly the same thing one more time to add the fourth one on. Okay, so pick up your bead, go down, and make sure when you're doing this that the picots are at the top, okay, and you're joining at the bottom. Okay, and then once you've got your bead on your needle, you go back up through that first one. Pull. And just like before, you're going to travel through that top bead, down through that one, and then what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing one more time, but we're going to join these two together so that they form in a circle. So go ahead and scooch along to the edge, and up through the corner, and this is just exactly the same as what we have been doing. All right, so once again you're going to pick up a blue bead. I'm coming out here, so I'm going to go down into that first corner that of the first one in order to form it into a square. Okay, pick up another one and go up. Okay, so you should have a right angle weave unit there as well. Okay, so you should have right angle weave units everywhere now. Okay, and if you need to tighten, like I see that my first one, I think it's a little loose because that's where my starting tail was. So don't worry if that's a little loose. When you weave that tail in, you'll be able to tighten that up. Okay. All right, so you should now have a kind of square, and it's going to feel a little soft right now. Okay, so go ahead and move through the next two beads just like what we would be doing if we were going to add another unit on, okay? And then you're going to move through until you come out from that middle gold bead. Okay, like this. And now you're going to poke through to the back, and we're going to flip over to the back. Okay, so the front, your little units, your 6mm bicones should be standing up on the top. So that's how you know that that's the front, okay? So they should be raised up, and the back should be pretty flat. So go ahead and flip over to the back. Okay, so once you have your thread coming out from the middle of that bead right there, you're going to get one of your chatons, okay? And this is on the back, so you flipped it over, and what we're going to do is turn over one of our chatons, and we're going to put our square on top of our chaton and just kind of hold it there for a second, okay? You're going to pick up two of your bee beads, and you're going to sew down, like I'm coming out on the right hand side, so I'm going to sew into the right hand corner on my square here, okay? And I'm just trying to keep that tail of mine out of the way for now. Okay. Okay, so you see the two little beads right here, and then you're going to pick up two more beads, and you're going to, coming out here, so I'm going to sew into the middle bead of the next unit. And I'm going to pull that. Okay, and then I'm going to pick up two more. I'm going to sew into the next corner of my chaton, okay, like this, and then I'm going to pick up two more, and I'm going to sew into the middle of this next unit at the bottom here. Okay, then I'm going to pick up two more, sew into the next corner, pick up two more, sew into the middle of the next unit, pick up two more, sew into the next corner of that square on the back of our chaton. And two more, and sew into that first middle bead where we started. Okay. Okay, so it should now have look like this on the back. Okay, so now we're going to just reinforce. So we're going to go down our first join here, and instead of what we were doing, we're going to sew through this middle bead of the square right here. And this bit can be a little bit difficult because of the angle. Okay, and then you're going to sew up through the two on the other side. And then you're going to sew through that middle, okay? And you're going to sew down through the corner. So down through both of those beads and then through the corner. And then it's easier if you just turn it, okay? You're going to do the same thing. So you're going to go up through the next beads. You're going to sew through that middle bead. You're going to sew down. You're going to sew through that middle bead on your chaton square. Then you're going to sew up. You're going to sew through that middle bead again. And then you're going to go down into the corner. And then you're going to reinforce the next join. So you're going to go up through here, down through this bead, up through here, down and over to the next one, and then you're going to reinforce that fourth one, okay? So I'll do the rest of that off screen, and hopefully you kind of get that. So I'll come back once that is finished. Okay, so I just went down and around, and this was my last one, okay? So I'm going to now just move forward. Actually, I need to move down this side again just to even this out through the next corner and up, and then you should be back where you started. My tail is on the right hand side, so that's kind of the side that we started on, okay? So once you have done that, go ahead and sew down to meet where your tail is. And you're going to just go ahead, tie a knot. Okay, so once you've tied your knot, leave your working thread attached, but you can go ahead and use a needle to thread your tail and just run through there and then cut it off, okay? So with a second needle, if you have one on hand, go ahead, just thread that end tail and weave through those beads there. And for those of you who are wondering why this video is extremely detailed, it's because I want it to be something that brand new beaders or not very experienced beaders can do themselves as well. So I'm just going through a lot of the more obvious things, okay? So if you're one of my more advanced beaders, just hang in there. Okay. So we're coming out right by this corner bead here. So we're going to go ahead and move up into the corner bead and move through that outer corner bead. And then you can flip back over to the front, okay? Okay, so it should look like this now. It's all sort of attached together. It might look a little bit like crooked or whatever, but don't worry, it'll get there. All right, so here we are. We're coming out from this bead right here. We're going to pick up 3 of our B beads, 1 of our bicones, and then 3 of our A beads, okay? And we're going to pass through the corner that's up above. So I'm coming out down here, so I'm going into this upper corner, plus the 3 seed beads right here, the 3 15-0s, okay, and go ahead and pull that. Then you're going to go over the top of your picot, so just go up through the side bead, through the middle bead, and down into the next bead, okay? And then you're going to go through your 15-0s and come out from the next corner bead. And that should help kind of tighten up that picot for you a little bit, reinforce it and tighten it up a little, okay? So you should have what looks like this on the side, okay? So we're going to reverse that. So we're going to pick up 3 of our A beads, 1 of our crystals, and then 3 of our B beads. And we're going to sew into the B bead that is right below, okay? So it should look like this. Then you're going to sew up the first 2 B beads. So back up through those B beads that you just added, the first 2, okay? And then you're going to pick up 1 B, you're going to pick up a bicone and 3 A's. going to sew into that corner bead through the 15 O's. Okay, so it should look like this. Have a kind of Y shape right here, okay? You're going to sew over the top of your picot. So sew through the first bead, the middle bead, and the second bead, the third bead, sorry. And then go through your 15 O's and come out from that corner bead. Okay, so we're going to do this all the way around. So you're going to pick up 3 of your A beads, 1 of your bicones, 3 of your B beads, because we don't have any here yet, okay? You're going to sew through that B bead that's sitting there. You're going to go back up through the first 2 of that group of 3. So sew back out through those. Pick up 1 more, pick up your bicone, and then 3 A's. And go through the corner and the 15 O's. Okay, so just repeat this all the way around, and when you get back over to this corner, I'll show you what to do to join on, okay? Okay, so when you get to the last corner here, you're going to pick up your 3 A beads, your crystal, and then only 1 B bead because we already have 3, so we only need 1, okay? You're going to go down skip that very first A bead and go down the next 2 beads, okay? And then you're going to sew in the direction you're working, so I'm working this way, through that middle bead, okay? So your thread will actually probably be coming out the other side of it, your first thread, so that's why you need to even it up, okay? And then you're going to sew back up through those 2 beads and pull. Okay, so it should now look like this. I love this color scheme. Okay, so once you're coming out between those 2 beads at the top, if you're right-handed, you're going to go through the left-hand bead. If you're left-handed, you're going to go through the right-hand bead. So I'm going through the left-hand bead, sorry, getting my lefts and rights confused. And then you're going to pick up 1 of your A beads and you're going to go down the other bead, whichever bead you didn't come out of, okay? So we're going to add that little gold bead in between our 2 bicones, okay? Now you're going to pick up 2 of your A beads, and on your chaton here, you see the B colored picots. I'm coming out on the right. You might be coming out on the left. If you're coming out on the left, you're going to sew into the left. I'm coming out on the right, so I'm going to sew into the right. Okay. Okay, and then I'm going to pick up 2 of my 15 O's. Okay, and you're going to look down underneath, and you see your 2 A beads here and the 2 B beads that are joining your squares together. Okay, so I'm coming out on the left-hand side, so I'm going to sew from the left to the right through that A bead, the B bead that is on the bottom, that is between the 2 A beads, like on the outer side. Okay, so you're going to sew through there, and that's going to just put a little line of 2 beads going down to the bottom layer. Okay, and then you're coming out on the bottom. Go ahead, sew back through the gap, just put your needle through to get your thread back up on the top. Okay, so we're coming out down below from that B bead, you're going to pick up 2 more 15 O's, and then you're going to sew through that upper layer B bead. And you'll know which side, because it'll be the side where your thread is coming out from, will be the side that you're going to sew. So if it's coming out on this side, you're going through to the other side, okay? Then you're going to go back through the 2 A beads that we just added, like this, and back into that left hand or right hand, whichever one you started in, bead. And when you pull that, it should look like this. So you've got your 2 A beads on either side that are kind of anchoring this down to this unit here on the bottom, okay? And then you've got these 2 A beads on the top that lead up to these 2 B beads, okay? Okay, so I'm coming out from my left hand bead. We have one more embellishment to make up here, and then we're going to move on to the next corner. So go ahead, pass through your A bead, your little gold bead that's between your bicones, and down the other side, whichever way you're working, okay? And then you're going to pick up 4 of your 15 O's. Okay, so 4. And on the other side of these 2, that bead that we've already sewn into with our 15 O's, you're going to sew through that bead. So if you're coming out on the right, sew in from the right to the left, okay? And it's just going to create a little loop of beads here. You're going to pick up 4 more. Okay, 4 more, and then you're going to sew into the left hand side, or if you started on the right, you're going to sew into the right hand side, okay? So now we have a little loop of 15 O's that goes around our A beads, okay? You're going to pass up through your bicone, and the first the first 2 A beads. So through the bicone and 2 A beads. Okay. You're going to pick up 1 more A bead, and then you're going to pass through the next 2 A beads. And that's going to create a little point on that bit right there, okay? Now we're going to pass over until we get to coming out from the second gold bead on this side. So you can either go straight through, or if you want to reinforce your picot again, you can go over the picot if that's easier for you. It's entirely up to you which path you want to take, okay? So go through the 15 O's, and then either over the picot or just straight through all the beads. Okay, so coming out from the second bead here, you're going to pick up your 1 gold bead. You're going to go through the next 2, and your 4mm bicone and the next bead right here. Okay, so the first one of those A's at the bottom, and pull, and that should form that little point, okay? All right, so I'm coming out from the bottom of my right hand bead, I'm going to go straight up into the corner, the bottom of my left hand bead. And then I'm going to add that gold bead that sits in between the two bicones. So I'm going down, coming out from the left hand bead, and going down into the right hand bead. And if you're right-handed and you're going the other way, you would have come out from the left hand bead. So you would have gone up through the right hand bead and then around, okay? You're going to pick up your 2 A beads. You're going to go through that picot that's on the bezel, okay? So the end of that picot. And my thread is on coming out the right hand one, so I'm entering in from the right to the left. Okay. You're going to pick up your 2 15-0s and you're going to sew into that bottom, on that little unit right there. You're going to sew into that B bead that's like on the outside of it, okay? So like this, and then just stick your needle up through the other gap, and it makes it easier to then pick up your next 2. So back into that blue bead on that picot, okay? And then you're going to sew back down through the 2 A beads and into that left hand bead, your starting bead. If you started on the right, you're going into that right hand bead, okay? Okay, so now we have to add our little loop of 15-0s. So just pass around through the gold bead, through the right hand bead, and then pick up those 4 15-0s, go through that picot end, okay. 4 more 15-0s, and up into that left hand bead. Then you're going to just move forward. Remember to stop after the second gold bead and add that point. And then you can scooch all the way across through the top of your square. Again, stop after that second gold bead and pick up a gold bead, go down through the next 2 and that blue bead, okay, and then you're ready to go up. Add your gold bead, come down, add your gold beads, add your 2 15-0s connecting down to here, and then 2 on the way back up. Go back through your gold beads into the left hand side over the top, and then add your 15-0s and continue on, okay? So you're going to do that for the other 2 corners, and then you're pretty much done with this. Anything that you feel needs reinforcing, go ahead and reinforce, and then you can tie in your thread, okay? Okay, so once you finish adding your last point, what I did is I went down, I went through the blue bead and then up through the blue bead and around and over, down, up, all the way around one time just to reinforce. And then what you can do is run your thread down one of these sides, or even inside one of these squares to tie it off, okay? Because where we're attaching our little top sections on, we may need to sew down through here and up one of the side squares. So you're going to want to probably tie off inside a square rather than on the side, because you may have to go down that side. You're not going to know which one it is because you've tied off your thread. Okay, yeah, so tomorrow we will be using our other two things that we've already done, and we will be making these sections of our necklace and the chain, and then that will be us finished. So you can also use this section as a brooch or just on its own. I mean, it's very pretty on its own as a pendant. Okay, so it does have a little bit of bend to it, but it's not bad. It's pretty sturdy, you know, and it's three-dimensional, so it should hold up fairly well. Okay, all right, I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care. Bye.